Hello and welcome to Between the Lines. On today's show, I will be speaking with author Nancy Bell, all the way from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Hello, Nancy, and welcome back. We've done this before. Welcome back to Between the Lines.
Hey, Randy, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Well, it was a pleasure last time. Let's not change that.
Let's see what I can do.
Oh, no promises, right?
Yeah, well, you know.
No, I don't.
You should be afraid. Very afraid.
Oh, you know what? People have tried that line on me before, but I can't see the difference anyway. So, all right. Before we get going into the meat of the story, or the interview rather, I wonder if you'd mind sharing with the listeners a brief, rundown on who Nancy Bell is and what makes Nancy Nancy.
Oh, well, I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a foster mom to a bunch of cats from Alberta Animal Rescue Crew. Just seems to be a revolving door of foster kitties. I have one horse still and 6 cats and a big goofy dog who hopefully won't bark while we're doing this. And yeah, I retired. I like to write because it keeps me from going crazy. And yeah, I like being outside. I like actually, you know what? I like standing outside and looking at the moon and the stars at night. My husband thinks I've lost my mind, but that's up to him.
And as I learned before we started this, you like trains.
I do like trains, actually. Yes.
And what brought that on? Where did that come from?
Oh, well, I think because when I was a kid, my grandparents lived with us, and my grandfather used to take me down to listen to the trains at night. There was a train track, I think a couple of blocks down the road from where we lived, and he used to take me down there, and it's just, I don't know, when you hear the train or you hear the whistle, it's just very comforting. It's kind of like listening to the coyotes.
Except when you're on the open prairie, because you can hear the train coming for miles.
Oh, well, yeah. We live probably, I don't know, maybe 10 kilometers from the train tracks that are on the other. They actually run through Airdrie, and I can hear them.
Oh, really, eh?
Yeah, I can hear them.
Well, from where I live, in Trochu, small town, from my house, 1, 2, 3 blocks away from the train tracks that go through, and yeah, I can hear it coming because there's nothing between here and Three Hills or Elnora the other way. It's just all open prairie, right? And it just it's just so loud, and they tend to get a little overzealous with their, "Hey, we're coming through."
The whistle
at 2:00 in the morning. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're like, yay.
Yeah, right. I've gotten used to it though, so.
You do get used to it.
After 16 years, I would hope so, right?
Yeah.
But now I got to get used to my not so little cat jumping on my chest at 3:15 in the morning going, "Hi."
Hi, it's food time.
Yeah, well, it'll be kick him off the bedtime soon. All right. Is there anything else you want to add to that little who's who of who's who?
No, I like writing. I like editing. I like helping other authors with their work, and sort of that symbiotic relationship, where you offer the suggestions as an editor, but it's really the author's choice whether they take your suggestions or your comments or not, basically. I'm not the kind of editor who kind of, you must do this.
Well, then it stops being their book and it becomes yours.
Well, yeah. And there are editors out there who are like that, because I've had, earlier in my career, I had contact with a couple and I was like, but I don't want to say that that way.
I've had interviews with a few people, you probably know, at least one of them, whose editor said, "No, you need to change this whole thing because that just doesn't fit with the story we want for this." And she basically said, "I'm leaving. Goodbye."
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, well, she's a smart lady.
That's good.
I think you know her. You'd probably live around the block from her or something.
Oh, I could.
You know Katie.
Katie
O'Connor.
No, I don't think I do know her.
She's in the writing group.
Oh, Oh, yes. Yeah. I just had to think about that.
The romance novelist.
Yeah, I didn't connect the last name
Oh,
for a
yeah, well,
minute.
I'll be interviewing her later on sometime this season. So
Oh, good.
yeah, well, I mean, everybody's got new stuff they want to push,
Yes,
right? So that's what the show's about. So with that being said, why don't we get right into this?
sounds good.
We'll get into question period. Ready? Number 1.
All right.
What inspired you to start writing?
I don't think there was like one kind of defining moment. I've been writing since grade school. Like, seriously, I still have I think it was like grade 4 or 5 composition, because that's what we called it back then, composition book. And yeah, there's like little short stories in there and little poems and stuff. And it's just words kind of spin around in my head. And if I don't spit them out and write them down, they drive me crazy. And they always have. And it's kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe it's a past life thing. I don't know.
I remember that from our last conversation.
Yeah, I honestly don't think there was like one defining moment. It's just something that I can't not do.
Yep. Yeah, I bet you there's a lot of people out there nodding their head going, I get that.
Yeah, I bet you there are too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, I certainly get it, because when something gets up there, it gets stuck up there until I get it out there.
Yep.
And nothing else is willing to make any room in there until that's gone.
Yeah, and then they wake you up in the middle of the night if you don't do it.
I hate them. I hate them.
I know. I've had my characters like 3 a.m. Like, if you don't get up and write this down, you're going to be a sorry person. We will not let you sleep.
I often kid around that the ideas that I get to are floating around in the ether and nobody's grabbing them, so they just come to me, or I grab them and steal them from people. But that's just my story.
As long as no one chases us down and wants them back, we're good.
Well, they got to find me first.
That's right.
Have you ever seen a blind guy run? Not pretty.
Well, have you ever seen the lady with the gimpy leg run? Also not pretty.
No. I've been accused of walking too fast for a blind guy.
Well, once when I did therapy for 3 years after I had a farm accident, and a little old lady with macular degeneration with her walker passed me in the hall on the way to therapy. I was like, and I thought I was doing really good that day. I was like, yeah, I'm moving, I'm good. And nope. I think her name was Arlene. It was a long time ago. And she just whipped past me. And I was like, damn.
Pretty humbling experience, I bet.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah. Getting French was very humbling, I have to say.
Oh, I've walked into stop signs and split my head open. And oh, it's been fun. It's been interesting. I was on my way to a library board meeting. And there's a car coming, and I was focused on the noise coming behind me of the car and wasn't paying attention where I was going, and I veered off track because, if you're not any direction I go is a straight line, whether it's anyway. I went straight into a stop sign and split my forehead open and made it up to the library board meeting, and they're like, all freaking out. It's just a flesh wound. But anyway, who are some of your literary influences?
Actually, the earliest, I was still in grade school, and her name was Jelaine Douglas, and she lived on Cortez Island out in the Georgia Straits, and she was someone who my grandmother knew and my mother knew when my mom was quite young, and they kept in touch with her, and she was quite prolific. She wrote a lot of sort of nonfiction. And she wrote it in the 40s and 50s where women didn't write about hunting or hiking or living in the bush. So she wrote under Grant Madison. And she was a really big influence. And I actually, when I was older, got to go out and meet her a few times before she passed away. But she was a huge influence because she was very supportive and, kind of guided and said, well, you might want to, ease up on the hyperbole there. You know how it is, but she was very good. And as far as authors who sort of have had an influence, Charles DeLint from Ottawa, his book The Little Country, and a couple of other ones, and just the way he mixes kind of urban fantasy with Celtic myths and stuff. It's just, I really enjoy his work, and he's had an influence on me as well.
So of those early influences, would there be one that you would have liked to have had as a mentor?
Well, Ghislaine actually was kind
Okay.
of a mentor, and yeah, she would be who I would choose, because she wrote some really really cool poetry, and she had some really cool nonfiction books. River for My Sidewalk was one of them. Oh, and The Protected Place, I think, was the last one that she wrote. She was working on an autobiography when she died called February Face, because she was born in February.
Okay. Interesting. That's good. Influences are good.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think your Canadian identity has influenced your writing, or has it?
It has. It's probably a huge part of what I write and how I write. I worked for Harlequin years ago before I was married. And so I read a bunch of Harlequins, obviously. I worked in the mailroom, and we used to have to count words in a manuscript. You had to count 10 pages at the beginning, 10 pages in the middle, and 10 pages at the end. But, you read them in the middle, because that's what you did. But they were all set in the States or in England. And at the time I was like, I don't know, 18 or 19 or whatever I was. And I was like, well, it'd be really nice if something was set in Canada once in a while.
Well, things like that don't happen in Canada, though.
Apparently not. We have, no drama, no romance, no nothing. So when I started writing, although I have to confess my very first book was set in Cornwall. It started in Alberta, but it ended up being set in Cornwall. But written from a Canadian point of view in Cornwall. So it wasn't written from a English or a Cornish point of view. But I think it's important that we tell our stories. Canada has as rich and convoluted and contentious a history as any country in the world, if you start delving into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that we tell our stories from our point of view, and not, you've got to change the setting into the US if you want to sell it, to New York or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? Then I don't care. I'm going to write Canadian, because that's who I am. And I'm proud of it. And I don't want to, change Alberta to Wyoming, basically, or Toronto to New York or Detroit or.
But anyway,
the world does revolve around Toronto.
No, it doesn't.
I think it does.
Trochu is the center of the world.
There you go.
If there are no Canadian authors telling Canadian stories, we will die as a viable story. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yep. Yeah, I do. And we need to tell those stories. The publisher that I'm with right now is BWL Publishing, and they did, for Canada's 150th birthday, they did a series of, it ended up being called Canadian Historical Brides, but they weren't really all romances, but basically there was one in each province and territory, and it told the story based on historical facts of events surrounding fictional characters, of what it was like to open Canada,
Oh.
What it was like to come into the West. And right now, they're in the middle of Canadian Historical Mysteries.
Nice.
So mine released in September, and it was Manitoba, and it's set during the Riel Rebellion. And I am Team Riel, actually.
Just a little brief, tidbit of Canadian history. It didn't really impact Canada on the whole. I'm kidding. It was huge.
It was huge. And, I remember taking it in school, and it was like, Louis Riel was, the devil incarnate, and he was treasonous, and he was this and that. And when I started actually researching what actually happened,
yeah,
like the government in Upper Canada, which was Canada at that point, like Manitoba and West was still Rupert's Land at that point. And it reached actually down into the States, down to Minnesota and St. Cloud. But John A. Macdonald was really quite the I don't even know what the word is to describe him, but He was very racist, and they treated the not just the indigenous people, but the people who were already basically living and working with the Hudson's Bay really terribly. And kind of did very much what they did in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, where when the Loyalists came out from the States during the Civil War and basically ousted the Acadians and gave their land to the Loyalists, and basically that's what they did in Manitoba.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm Team Royale.
But you're a proud Canadian?
Well, I love Canada. I don't necessarily agree with all the politics.
I'm not asking about politics.
But I do love Canada. And yeah, I'm proud to be Canadian. I would rather be Canadian than, my roots are British, Irish, and British, and I would rather be Canadian than that, or say that I'm an American. I would rather say I'm Canadian.
Yep, absolutely. And I can go down a huge rabbit hole with so many different things that you just brought up, but we don't have, this is not the scope of this conversation.
No, it's not. Sorry.
Don't be. I mean, it's part of who you are and why you write what you write, though.
Yeah. So I actually got coerced into writing another one of the historical mysteries because the author that was supposed to do it dropped out. So it's set in Ontario, and I'm going to do, Tom Thompson he wasn't really a member of the Group of Seven, but he was a very contributing factor to it. He died before they actually became the Group of Seven.
Yeah.
But he knew them, like Arthur Lismer and A.Y. Jackson, and he knew everybody, and his work influenced their work. But he died in very mysterious circumstances, and nobody's really figured out what happened. So I kind of have a little bit of a clean slate there. I got to figure out how I want him to get killed off.
Oh, interesting.
It's very interesting. It's really interesting. It's all the different sort of, some people say this person did it, and some people say that person did it, and then somebody says, oh, somebody else. And then apparently somebody in Canoe Lake had him buried in this little teeny cemetery. And then his family is from Owen Sound, and they supposedly exhumed the body and took it and buried it in Owen Sound, where the big monument is right now. But the whole conspiracy and mystery is, did they actually really move the body? Is he still there? And why would somebody not want his body exhumed? Like, it's a lot of research to do yet, but it's really interesting.
Back in the late 90s.
1917.
Back in the late 90s, I went down to New Mexico. And Billy the Kid, I visited the supposed gravesite of Billy the Kid, which was behind a cage. And
cool.
It's a very interesting story down there. And Fort Sumter, I think, is where it was. But yeah, just that that grave has been robbed. That's why there's a cage around it. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you're like, why?
But it's history. It's worth talking about. It's defined who we are today, but it's nothing we can rest our laurels on.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, there's many things we cannot rest our laurels on.
But that doesn't mean we have. No, I'm not going to get political or controversial. But you know where I was going with that.
I do know where you were going. Yes.
How do you balance your personal life with your writing career? I was going to say writing life, but your writing career.
It's been easier since I had the farm accident, was basically forced to retire, but it's been easier since then because I don't try and fit it in around the million other things that I was doing. Because I had 3 horses I was riding, I was working full time, and then I was also trying to write, and my kids were younger then too, which also made it more difficult. And so now it's fairly easy. Like, I can basically, not donate. I can basically take the time I need to write.
Okay.
When I want to, basically, because I don't really have a lot of other commitments at this point in my life.
Sorry, I was laughing while you were talking because one of the things that you had said conjured an image in my head, and you were talking about you were riding 3 horses, and I was going to ask you, are you a circus performer?
Not at the same time, no.
Oh, at the same time.
Not at the same time.
Now this is a second or third, maybe even fourth time that you said you are retired. Does that mean that you're tired again?
Yes, it does actually.
I was talking with Mandy earlier,
Uh-huh.
and she was saying that, being retired, she's got all this time, and I said, really? Because I know a lot of people who say they are retired and find that they've got no time, less time than when they weren't retired.
That can happen. That has happened actually, but not in the recent past anyways, but
I love the recent past.
yeah, the recent past.
Those are the good memories until you forget them. How do you think technology, that's an evil word.
It is.
It's a long word that really should be down to 4 letters. But anyway, how do you think technology has impacted the publishing industry as a whole?
It's had a huge, huge impact on it. I mean, I can remember at a conference I was at, and Jack White was talking, and he was talking about when his first book, whatever it was called, Skystone or whatever it was called, and he'd sent it to an agent or a publishing house or whatever in Toronto, and they decided they would publish it. And so he said his editor would send him back the manuscript with a whole bunch of purple little sticky notes attached to it. And he would go through it and fix whatever they wanted fixed. And literally in those days, it was cut and paste. There was no computers. He was on his typewriter cutting and pasting to change things. And then he would send it back. And then the editor would send it back, and now there would be purple and yellow stickies. And this went back and forth and back and forth. And so it took a long time because you're waiting on the mail. And now, we attach a file and off it goes.
Yeah. And
then as far as editing goes, I mean, we do most of that, 99.9% of that online now. Industry usually uses MS Word, so you have track changes. And then if you start getting into self-publishing versus traditional publishing, that's basically been made available to authors through technology, through, Smashwords and KDP and whoever. And then recently you have AI rearing its ugly head, which is a whole other sort of bucket of worms, because basically AI goes through the internet and scrapes other people's intellectual properties and uses them. And there's no mechanism where the original owner of that intellectual property ever gets recognized or recompensed or anything else. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a big fan of AI. Maybe that's just because, I'm in the crone stage of my life. I don't know. But I don't know.
See, from my perspective, being visually impaired,
right,
and male and impatient, I just have to throw in those qualifiers.
Uh-huh.
I'll write something, and I will go to AI with the specific instructions to edit it, checking for spelling, grammar, punctuation, and clarity. So it's taking my words and just cleaning it up for me. So basically, it's my editor.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, you can also use Grammarly for that, which is free.
Yeah, but so again, for me,
it would be harder.
It would be harder because, well, one, I function in a high contrast world. And Grammarly doesn't work with high contrast.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't.
So, I have to make do with what I have.
Yep.
It's not like I'm using AI to write for me. It's just editing what I've written.
Yeah, and I don't know that it doesn't have its place, but you just, you hear kids, oh yeah, I got AI to write my whatever. And I know a bunch of teachers have been concerned about that.
There are universities that are allowing it now.
Yeah. And like, for me, why bother? If I'm going to do a course and I need to write a whatever, why would I want somebody else to write it for me? Like, what do I learn from that?
Yeah, I can see that aspect, absolutely. But
Yeah,
do you
it's
remember a few years ago when emojis were the big thing, and the big joke was is we're going back to hieroglyphics?
I know. Yeah, I know. It's one of those, it's six of one and half dozen of the other.
Yeah, it's for
And
some people and it's not for some people.
yeah, yeah, and whether it's right or whether it's wrong, it's part of the landscape now, and we just have to learn to live with it and around it.
It's like that old beer commercial. Less filling tastes great.
Yeah, there you go.
Not that I drink beer. I'm not endorsing beer drinking, by the way.
No, I don't either. I had an unfortunate incident with beer when I graduated high school, and I haven't liked beer since.
Oh, you should write a story.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad. We have lots of stories about that. We used to board my girlfriend and I boarded our horses. We were like 16, 17, I guess we were. And, right near Scarborough College in north part of Toronto now. But down Military Trail, there was, just before you went down into the Highland Peak Valley, there was a pub called the Running Pump. And we used to ride our horses down there and hang out with the bikers. And then, oh, it gets better. And then at 1:00 in the morning, when everybody was, last call, everybody's going home, we would sit on our horses on the side of the road with our thumbs out like we were hitchhiking and watch people drive off the road. Because we were, non-responsible teens at the time.
That's absolutely hilarious.
We were bad.
I had a cousin back in the 70s, was out west, and he rode his horse across the country.
Oh, that'd be cool.
All the way back to Ottawa.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like 7 years old when he showed up at the cottage, and it's like, Danny, how'd you get here? I rode my horse from Vancouver.
Wow.
That
would be a long ride.
That would be an interesting story to write.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
Wow. So there's so many things that we could write about that that just get lost because something new shows up in this thing we call a brain.
Yeah.
Question number 6.
Okay.
How do you think social media has affected the way writers connect with their audience?
I think it's major. Like, people have Instagram accounts, they have TikTok, they have, us old fogies have Facebook. Apparently it's for us old fogies.
That's what my son tells me.
Yeah, that's I've heard that too. So, but Instagram and just whatever they have, little podcasts and it's huge. And even, with state old Facebook, you can go live and you can do basically readings that, you can go live, but then somebody can go back and watch it later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's huge. Like, there's even the big 5 aren't doing kind of the book tours like they used to, where they used to send you out to wherever. And, you'd hit all the high spots, I guess, or the low spots, depending.
Yep.
But a lot of it is now done, online or.
Well, the big 5 do that for the bigger names.
Yes, they do. But they don't do it to the extent that they used to for, not necessarily the big writers. Same as advances are way less than what they used to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And again, fewer and fewer, publishers are offering advances even.
So the book's got to prove itself first.
Yeah, that seems to be that way. And I think it's just a time, sign of the times, basically. And it's like a lot of the brick and mortar bookstores going out of business. It's nice to still have the small independent bookstores. Like, I think the one in Olds is still there.
Yep.
Pandora's Books and Tea, I think it is.
There's one in a bookstore in Three Hills.
Yeah, it's nice, the little bookstores, and that we support them. Owl's Nest in Calgary, Sentry Box, I think, is another one. There's a few of them. I don't think there's a bookstore in Airdrie anymore, however.
Really, eh?
No, there was a travel agency in Cochrane that was also had like a little local authors spot as well. But I'm not sure if they're even there because I haven't been to Cochrane in years.
Well, there's a little drugstore in Three Hills, which shall remain nameless because he's not endorsing me.
Oh, well.
But I mean, if you're a local author, they will put your book in his store.
Yeah, and which is really nice because it's hard. It's hard to get your books places.
Well, absolutely.
And we really want them in libraries for public lending rights.
I've donated a copy of every one of my books to my local library.
Yeah, and I donate a lot of my books too.
And most of the people that I interview who do have a book, off air, I usually ask them if they're willing to donate a copy of their most recent book to my local library.
Yeah,
and most have been willing and actually love the idea. So
yeah,
it's got one in the mail today, actually.
Oh, well, I'll send you a copy of this one it's the latest one that I actually just did a book launch at the Airdrie Library for it last week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're really supportive. Airdrie Library has been really good.
So far, since I've been doing this podcast, I've had about 35 books donated to the library.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they become part of our permanent collection.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. I mean, so I'm helping build our library one author at a time.
Yeah, fill those shelves.
Yeah. And so they've got 12 of my books. They've got, and like I said, another 35 from people that I've interviewed. So
good.
It's the little things that I can do to help the lesser known Canadian authors.
Yeah, which is awesome.
You have 12 books, I have 12 books, but we're still lesser known for the most part.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
And so
I'm always amazed if someone actually recognizes me or knows who I am at a conference. I do the double take. Really?
Yeah, I got to start getting out a little bit more, but it's a long walk to most of these places.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's government grants out there for limo rides to conferences for blind people.
You think there should be?
Well,
something.
It's not like I'm not contributing to society somehow.
No. You think there should be a grant or something through Canada Book Fund or?
Well, there are grants available, but the hoops and the red tape.
I know and then you can jump through all the hoops and still end up with nothing.
Except a lot of wasted time.
Yes, because it's not simple.
Well, I mean, isn't there a course somewhere in some university?
Yes, I think there is. Yeah.
How to write a grant.
I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I care that much.
Right? I've got 2,000 people in my writing group. I've got another writing group that I'm in that's got 13,000 people. I post my new book up on that. There's 15,000 people that have seen my book.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody buys it, I'm happy. If nobody buys it, I'm still happy. I wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how I feel about it. I'm certainly not in it for the money because, if you have a day job, don't quit.
Well, I can remember in Vancouver, Stanley Park along the seawall, and they would have the struggling artists, and they would have their, easels with their paintings and tables with their paint, and these guys were struggling. Very talented, but no exposure.
Yeah, and that's you. And sometimes it's not even how talented you are; it's being in the right place at the right time, and the right person shows up. It's just it's like catching the wave.
Yeah. I have a new little dream that you're in my group, Canadian Creative Writers. Yeah. I would like to see a little magazine sprout out from that group.
That would be cool.
Yeah, but I don't know the first thing about it because that's not anywhere that I've got experience.
No. Yeah, I'm not. You're thinking like online magazine or?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be somebody who knew how to do all that technical stuff.
Well, I'm sure if I bang 2,000 heads together, we'll come up with somebody.
You would think.
But that's a small little dream. I like to dream in small little things, and
that would be cool.
Yeah, so and maybe you can be a part of it. Maybe you who's listening can be a part of it.
Yeah, there's certainly enough talent in that group.
Oh, there. You know what? I was doing that the other day, trying to do some tabulations about. Okay, I've got just about 1,990 whatever members.
Yeah.
And how many people in that group have published books? And how many books have been published by the people in that group? And I think out of the almost 2,000 people in our group, we've got somewhere close to about 800 books that have been published.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know? And, okay, like Katie, she's got, what's she up to now? 25, 26, 27 books? You've got, what, 10, 12?
No, I'm 21, I think.
Oh, I got to catch up. I'm only at 13.
One. No, I've got this. There's 7 in the Laurel series. There's 3. I don't know. I counted them at some point. I think this one's 21. I think.
Yeah.
Because I had 2 came out this year because I had the mystery set in Manitoba, and then I had the last Laurel book came out this year. So I had 2 this year.
Okay.
And then I'll have 1 this year, in 2024.
I'm sitting on 3 poetry books coming out this year. Maybe a novella and a memoir.
Cool. Yeah, I know you've been working on your memoir.
Oh, since 2013.
Yeah, I have so much poetry that's just kind of everywhere, and I need to force myself to sit down and actually put it together.
Okay. Hey, got a quick question for you then. You got a poem you want to read?
Hang on.
Just
let me grab one of the books.
Well, you should have been prepared. You know me.
Well, let's see what we got here.
Well, I'll give people a sample of, what you're about, right?
You want a longer one or most of them are short, actually?
We are not worried about time.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of short ones, but this one is called Dancing in the Moon. And I wrote this one fairly long time ago. The moonlight is strong through my window. The spring equinox draws near. On the beams that slant across the sill, my ancient lover comes riding. The tiny part of me who remembers still rises to dance in the moonlight, entwining and joining, shining like motes of brighter light against the silver of the moon. Memories flood through me wild and strong. I am coming home. In a wild whirl of remembrance, I know I must remember the words, and I speak them into the mouth of my other self. When the sun falls bright across my bed, I search for the words, but they have no place in this time. I can almost remember them, though, and the steps of the dance in the moonlight. That's that one.
And you said you wrote that quite a while ago?
Oh, I think that would have been written in the early 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay. So do you have a lot of stuff that has yet to see the light of day from back then?
Yeah, I do, actually. That one's in this book's called Touchstone that I self-published.
Okay. I think we talked
about the front is my very first horse. That was his stall sign, actually, that I drew.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a bunch of, like, most of my poems are fairly short. I have a girlfriend who writes like massively long poems, and I don't know. I just don't.
Well, the day of the epic is almost gone.
Yeah, and hers, she's always in her poems, which I find interesting, because I very rarely am actually in my poem.
But there's a little bit of you in each one, which is...
of course there is.
Yeah.
But hers are a lot of, in the poem, she'll be like, I did this, or I saw this, or I experienced this, and most of mine aren't.
But part of who you are is.
Oh, of course they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote this one in high school.
Oh, did you?
Yes, which will tell you oh dear, high school.
You,
yes.
What was the title of that poem again?
Which one? The one I just read?
Yeah. Dancing in the Moon?
Dancing in the Moon.
Okay.
This one's called Charms.
Oh, okay.
I ain't got no pretty face, and all my charms are in the bracelet on my wrist. I can't even offer you money or power and important friends. All I can give you is all that I am, a shoulder to lean on and peace without lies. Even though you're here today and tomorrow gone, all I have worth giving is me. That was high school.
That's pretty damn good for high school.
That was high school.
Like what? Like towards the end of high school, early high school?
Probably grade 11 or 12.
Okay.
So I would have been like 16 or 17 when I wrote that.
Nice.
But yeah, no self-esteem at all. I think the horse on the cover is the only reason I made it through my teenage years. I think he literally saved me because, man, High school was not a fun time.
Well, I wasn't in high school for high school. I was only there to sell drugs.
Oh, well.
That is a whole nother story.
I was there for in grade 12, I had 2 English classes. I had Canadian literature, and then I had my English class. And other than that, I knew which classes they didn't take attendance in, and I would skip off and go to the barn to be with the horses. I didn't even have my own horse at that point, but I didn't get him till the January, actually, of my graduating year. But I was working at a stable.
Okay.
So I would, skip off and go to the barn. It's no wonder I passed. No wonder I graduated. But I managed.
What is your favorite thing about being a writer?
It's kind of turning my stories loose on the world.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. It's just, when I start writing, it's like my characters kind of take over and they kind of write the story. Like I'm definitely a pantser. I don't really plan. Like I have a very loose plan in my head, kind of. But lots of times my characters just kind of take over, and so when it's done, it's like I just want to turn them loose into the world and let them go tell their story to whoever wants to listen to them. And I think that's kind of the creating is the favorite part. I really hate marketing because I'm not good at it, and
Otherwise, you'd find a better interviewer. I'm teasing. For the benefit of those who are listening who may not know what the heck a pantser is, or can you give a brief description of those 3 categorizations of writer?
Yeah, there's kind of there's the person who plans. They have some people use Scrivener, some people have sticky notes everywhere, some people use storyboards. Yeah. And, you plan everything, you do all these you develop your characters and who they are and, who everybody was that they came from. And a lot of that doesn't actually go into the story, but you use it to create the character and in your head give reasons why they react the way that they do. And you just tell your reader enough that they know what they need to know, but they don't need to know everything you know.
Yeah.
And a pantser's just kind of has an idea and they just start writing, and the characters just take you where they take you, and you run along behind typing as fast as you can and try and keep up.
And the origin of that one is pretty much writing by the seat of your pants.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other one is a combination of the 2.
Oh yeah, well there is. And when I'm writing, like I don't normally write mysteries. So when I wrote my mystery for Manitoba, I actually did have to plan a little bit because you have to have all those elements, and they have to kind of appear at the same time, and you got to have the red herring, and so I actually researched how to write a mystery, and I had notes and different things. So I did for that one. I did actually do some planning, and for the Tom Thompson mystery that I've just started working on, doesn't come out till November. I'm going to have to do the same thing because I kind of have to, because you have a timeline and there's certain historical things that happened at specific points. And I need to know where to insert my fictional character in with these actual historical figures.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, that comes into play sometimes. But when I'm actually just, like if I'm writing my romances or my young adult fantasies or urban fantasies, or I just kind of sit down and go. And I don't plan my poetry. It just is a gift. It just comes to me. Yep. And I know my girlfriend and I know lots of people who kind of plan poetry, but I write a lot of free verse and I don't write, like sonnets or madrigals or tsitsinas. I have just, because I could say I did it and to explore that, but mostly the words just come to me and they're like a gift, and I just take them and I very rarely mess with them once they're done. I have a couple of times because, somebody said, oh, this would be better if it rhymed or that. And so I messed with some of them, and then I didn't like it after I messed with them.
Well, yeah, I think I talked about this with you the first time we talked. I took a course through the Hadley School for the Blind, and it was called Elements of Poetry. And my instructor told me to go back and edit one of my old poems. And the first thought in my head was, you edit poetry?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it came out the way it was meant to come out.
And that's how I feel about it. Like, I hate messing with it. Unless there's like one word that I can't quite grasp what is trying to come through. And so I use a word just to get past that spot. And then often I will go back and maybe mess with that one word. But I don't generally mess with what actually comes out.
There are some people who write poetry, and you can tell the how much contrivance went into finding that right word, or it's got to fit perfectly. And to me, that's not how I like to read poetry.
No, and me neither. And I would find if I tried to write it like that, I would just stifle myself.
Well, yeah, because it's not you. It's you're trying to force something to fit.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a good thing. And for some people, that's not necessarily a bad thing either. But we're individuals, and that's why you get such an eclectic variation of what's available for people to like and not like. Like I'm a big fan of the poetry of Jim Morrison.
Mm.
That's not for everybody.
No. Have you read what's it called? The Deer's Cry by Patricia Morrison?
No.
She was his wife.
Yep.
And it's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's called The Deer's Cry, and it's set in like mythical Ireland.
Oh, okay.
And if you can get your hands on it, I think you'd enjoy it. And she talks about Jim Morrison. There's kind of like an afterword sort of thing.
Oh.
And she talks about Jim Morrison in the afterword. She wrote quite a few, but The Deer's Cry is the one that I like the best. There was another one called The Black Mantle is another one you might enjoy.
Okay. Years ago, I had an idea to kind of write a book based on an interview done with Jim Morrison, but all the answers came from song lyrics.
Oh, that would be cool.
And that was during the 80s when I was on the streets and heavily into drugs, and so I don't know where that thought went, but it might be worth reinvestigating.
I'll be coming back.
Question number 8. You know it's coming. You knew it was coming. We've done this before.
Yeah.
So I promise this one will not hurt. And, well, maybe it will. I don't know. Okay. How do you navigate the fine line between incorporating personal experience into your work and maintaining a creative distance?
I don't know that I have a creative difference. I think pretty much a lot of what I write is just from my heart. And so how my character or characters react at different times to different things is definitely a reflection of how I would react or how I would view something in the same way. And I remember Jelaine years ago. I was quite young and I hadn't met her yet, but we'd written back and forth like 1,000 times. And I was like, I really wish I could meet you. And she said to me something that was quite, it's always stuck with me. And she said, you don't meet the author in her living room. You meet her in her books. Because we reveal more of ourselves when we write, like our inner, who we really are in our writing than we would do in most conversations.
I don't see you posting a lot of your written work on Facebook or anything, so I don't know if you ever do or not, but there have been times that I've written something and it's really got nothing to do with anything I've experienced, felt, or lived or breathed, and I've written it, and I've had people comment going, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you," and I'm going, "But this has got nothing to do with me," and people don't want to believe it because they think it's got to be a personal experience for it to be real.
Yeah, not necessarily though. I mean, we can view what happens to someone else and have empathy and write from that point of view. It's still kind of our take on it and from our heart, but it's not necessarily our experience, if that makes sense.
It does. It does to somebody who's listening.
Sorry, it was kind of a convoluted route to get where I was going, but
hey, you got to get there somehow.
Yeah, but Yeah, I see your point about that. Yeah. I should post more stuff online, but that's the marketing part that I'm really bad at.
See, that's why I enjoy publishing my books through KDP, because I don't have a publisher telling me it's been on social media, you can't publish it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I can say what goes into the books I want to put out there.
Yeah. And for sure.
I've got an 8-part short story that I posted as a blog post over 8 weeks, and it was called 50 Hours. And I posted it in the writing group. I posted it on my blog post as a 8-part series, and it's going to be in my upcoming book. Which, okay, there's another book I forgot about. In not so many words, short stories, shorter stories.
Is that the one with the alien invasion?
No.
I remember the alien invasion one.
I'm still working on that one.
That was kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
The Western one, right?
Oh
no, the alien invasion one.
Yeah.
Where, okay, War of the Worlds, but
War of the World leads one.
Yeah. That's in there.
That's cool.
And then I've got a few dreams that have been translated into stories. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give someone who might say that, well, you know what, I can't write?
It's actually quite common for someone who, maybe they want to, but they think they can't. And it's like, everybody can write. Everybody can write. And all you have to do is sit down and start. And it doesn't matter what you write. Just sit down and do it. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then the better you get at it.
Yeah.
And it becomes less of a challenge, I guess is the word, maybe, or a chore. But everybody can write. I mean, we all do it. If you can read, you can write, because a lot of how we form our sentences sometimes comes from the favorite authors that we read, until we become aware that we're doing that, and then we strive to sort of fine tune our own author voice. But a lot of times, you find that you're actually following sentence structures. If you read like one author exclusively or most of the time, you'll find that sometimes you phrase things the same way. You're not necessarily plagiarizing. It's just sentence structure more than
or words. Certain words that they use over and over again.
Yes.
Like cacophony by Dean Koontz. He loves that word.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me that question. We were talking about that the other day, and like, so how do I start writing? I said, one word at a time.
Yeah.
Start with one word and add another one, and just go from there. Doesn't matter what you're writing. Just get into the habit of it, and these things will work themselves out.
Yeah, and don't self-criticize.
Well, I don't know anybody who doesn't self-criticize themselves about anything. We all do it.
Of course we do. Of course we do. But I think when especially if you're struggling to start writing, it's like, don't worry about, did I put the comma in the right place, or just put the words down. Let the rest of it will come later.
Yep.
Once you get the words puked out onto the page.
Puked out.
Well, some
you
days
didn't say puked out, right?
Some days it feels like that.
I'm losing my vision. Apparently I'm losing my hearing too. All right, we're getting into the best part of the show, the shameless plugging, which is why I like to do this. And I say this to everybody that I've interviewed. This is really why I do this, is to highlight, showcase, and tell people where to find you. So without any further monkeying around or whatever, what books do you currently have available on the market, and where can people find them?
Well, we appreciate you doing this for us, so thank you. My books are all available on Amazon. They're available through Smashwords, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, I think LSI, and the Lightning Source in the States. I have 2 series, one set in Cornwall, one set in Alberta. Laurel's Quest, A Step Beyond, and Go Gently are in Cornwall, and Wild Horse Rescue, Dead Dogs Talk, and Chance's Way are in Alberta, and they're all part of sort of the Laurel Rowan series. And the book that just released is called Laurel's Choice, and it is set partly in Alberta, partly in Cornwall. And it was supposed to be the last book. It's kind of book 7. But there might be one more because I didn't totally tie up all the ends that I want to tie up.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes. And I have a Western romance series set in Longview, Alberta, which is called Storm's Rescue. Come Hell or High Water, which takes place during the Calgary Stampede and was also influenced by the 2013 flood in Calgary. Mm-hmm. And then a Longview Wedding. And there's also a novella that goes along with that called A Longview Christmas. There's 2 historical romances. One is His Brother's Bride, which is set in Ontario, and Landmark Roses, which is set in the Mennonite community in southern Manitoba.
Okay.
And then
Winkler in around there?
Yeah, I co-authored the New Brunswick book in that series. I did a lot of the research in that one and did some editing on it. Called On a Primeval Stormy Shore, wasn't my title. I did not come up with that title, so just FYI.
Sounds almost AI-ish.
Almost, yes, it is. I have 2 poetry books, one called Through This Door, and the other one is called Touchstone. Those ones are self-published, but they are available on Amazon. There's also one called Initiations of Fairy Shaman, I believe is the name of it. But if you go to Amazon and type in Nancy M. Bell, it'll come up.
Because there is another Nancy Bell.
There is another person with my name. If I'd been really smart, I would have used my maiden name, but I didn't. And then I have the mystery that came out in September of this year called Discarded, which is during the Riel Rebellion. And Discarded refers to the fact that when the Scottish and British first came to Rupert's Land and what is modern day Winnipeg, they wouldn't have survived without taking what were called country wives, which were Métis and Indigenous women who basically were their wives until some kind of society started. There was more influx of British and European influence, and they began wanting more what they called suitable brides, more refined, more in keeping with British society. And they basically tossed these women who had basically saved them and kept them alive for 3 or 4 years and had children with them, basically tossed them aside. So that's where that title came from. Okay. And it came out, and then Laurel's Choice just released in December. And I'm currently working on the Tom Thompson mystery, which is set in Ontario in 1917 during World War I. And they will all be available. They're also available through the publisher's website, BWL Publishing, or no, it's bookswelove.net, I believe, is the URL for that. And if you click on my name in the left column, then it takes you to all my books, and not the self-published ones, obviously, but all the traditionally published ones. And if you click on the covers, it will take you to a page where you can choose from whatever vendor you wish to purchase from, whether it's Kobo or whoever.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think you actually
sent me... long-winded, but
that's okay. I think you actually sent me the cover for Laurel's
Choice, probably.
Yes, I think that might have been it. So
yeah, it's got the good horse on it.
That's going to accompany your interview up on the web. Are you current? I think you've already covered this one too.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. So we can skim over it real quickly. Are you currently working on anything? And if so, how close is it to being done?
It's not even started because I'm still doing the research, but it's called the Tom Thompson Mystery. That's Thompson without a P. And there was a little bit of contention over the cover. I found the image, and it was actually kind of a yellowy ochre sort of. It's trees and a lake with a canoe because he was actually found dead in Canoe Lake in Algonquin Park. And then the cover artist, for whatever reason, took the yellow out and used blue. And when they sent me the cover, I'm like, but it looks like winter. It was very blue-ish.
And whose painting is it?
It's just it's off Deposit Photos. So I'm not sure who the publisher you find your images, and then the publisher picks the ones out of the ones you pick that she likes, and they use that one, and it's just like a royalty thing you buy use of the picture for however long.
Right.
So it was blue, and I was like, but it's July.
Here's probably something very few people think about. I used to work at the Winnipeg Art Gallery, head of security, and they've got a huge private collection, and they've got some Tom Thompson and Group of Seven stuff in there that are unbelievable. And when I was on patrol, I would get unfettered access to the vaults. You can probably, and I did this because I found a painting that I really liked by a Canadian. And anyway, I called them up and I said, listen, are there any lithos available of this particular painting? Because I would like to get a copy as a gift for somebody. And they said, well, no, we have none. But if you would like, we can send away to the estate of the artist to see if they will license it to you to do that.
Cool.
And I said, yes, please do that. And she sent me back an email saying, yes, they agree. There's a fee for the reproduction cost or whatever like that. And then I told her what I wanted it for. It was for my pastor because it was Pastor Appreciation Month or whatever, October. And she wrote back and said, well, the estate has waived the fee. All you have to do is just pay for the price of getting it printed.
Well, that was nice.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, I mean, they've got some really nice Tom Thompsons in the private collection. And you can call them up and say, hey, listen, can I get a copy of this for my book cover or whatever purpose you want?
Oh, that would be cool. I don't think my publisher would go through that, but it's nice to know that because I really, really like, I took art appreciation in high school. And we actually went to the McMichael gallery.
Okay.
Where the heck is that? I know the name of the town. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's north of Toronto anyways. And we actually, walked through the McMichael collection and it was amazing. And, it's so funny because you look at like Thompson's work and A.Y. Jackson, and then you look at Lauren Harris. And the difference in styles is just, like just totally different. It's much more almost stylized, kind of.
My first high school was named after Corinne Wilson. Another artist, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and then female artists, you have Emily Carr, who again is totally different. But A.Y. Jackson and Thompson and I think Lismer, if I remember right, were very sort of similar.
Yeah, that's why they were on their own, like a bunch of beatniks, but for artists.
And Algonquin Park is just so amazing. Like, I've been fortunate enough to visit it a number of times because I grew up in Ontario. And it's just so what it is, like just nature.
I've probably been through there, but I was influenced by something I don't remember.
A lot of trees, a lot of rocks, a lot of water.
Hey, that's Canada.
Northern Ontario.
Next, and one of my favorites. If you had to choose one of your books or poems or what have you as a favorite, which one would it be and why?
I would have to say for a book, it would have to be Laurel's Quest, only because it was the very first book I ever had published. And it, I wrote that after I had my farm accident and I was like in bed for 3 months and on crutches for 14 weeks. And researching that book probably saved my life because I was going crazy. I would have to say it's my favorite. For a poem, I would have to say the poem called Touchstone, which I wrote to my first horse.
You read that last time.
Yeah. That is my favorite poem, and it's definitely dedicated to him. And yeah, like I said before, he's probably the only reason I made it through my teenage years. Because it didn't matter how you screwed up or what you did. He was always there, and he loved me. He didn't care what I did as long as I was good to him. And we got ourselves into trouble. We got ourselves out of trouble.
They is loyal animals.
Their hearts are huge.
Sorry, again, I flash back to a movie now. Remember the movie Cat Ballou?
Vaguely, yes.
Cat Ballou with Lee Marvin?
Yeah,
Like,
and the horse is drunk or something?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. To see, it's a blessing and it's a curse.
Yeah, it's in there.
It's in there all right. Deep. Where can people connect with you? Facebook, TikTok, email, snail mail, website. I'll just stop there. You know where to go from there.
My email is Emily Picasso, which is PIKKASSO @gmail.com. And that's my horse's name and her daddy's name, which is why Picasso is spelled so weird, because he's a German warm blood.
Okay.
And my publisher's website is bookswelove.net, and all my books are on there. Facebook is author Nancy M. Bell, and I actually do go to my Facebook page fairly often. I have a website, which is nancymbell.ca, which I have to confess I am really, really bad about visiting that and updating it. So I also, Books We Love has, or BWL Publishing has kind of an author blog, and on the 18th of every month I post on their author blog, and you can get to it through their main website.
Okay.
I don't do like TikTok or Instagram, mostly because they just want information to everything that's kind of on your phone or on your computer, and I'm like, I'm paranoid.
No, it's not paranoia. It's smart.
Because it's too easy to get, it's too easy at some of these places, oh no, your data is safe with us. And then they have this massive breach and you're like, great. Like just recently, LinkedIn and Dropbox, and I can't remember the other ones. Those were the two that affected me. So I'm careful about kind of who I give information to. And maybe that's just because I'm, old and crotchety.
It sounds like we could do a whole different show about conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's all kinds of them around TikTok. Holy crow!
I don't function there at all.
No, Well, me and the camera are not really, really good friends. So, I very rarely take selfies because I take them and then I delete them. So I'm like, oh my God, who's that old lady in there?
I've had a few people that I've interviewed saying, can we reschedule this? I'm having skin issues, or I'm having a bad hair day. I'm saying, listen, for one, I'm visually impaired, so it doesn't really matter. And two, this is going to be an audio interview, so you'll be fine.
I always have a bad hair day, so.
Well, you get rid of it and you don't.
I don't know.
My hair day is my long beard.
I think I would look worse, so.
With a beard? Yeah, probably.
Oh, yeah, No, I think if I shaved my head off, I'd look worse. So we'll just deal with the wispiness.
Not everybody's got a head for no hair.
No, and I don't think I do.
Oh, I've met some women who have, and
I know some women look gorgeous.
Like Sinead O'Connor. Do you remember her?
Yeah. Some women look absolutely gorgeous, and
Demi
I don't know. Yeah, like some of them are just beautiful, and good for them. But I don't think it's me.
In closing, what would you tell anyone who might be too afraid to take the chance on becoming a writer or being published?
Well, I guess it depends on how important it is to that person. Like if it's something that is driving you and you're just resisting it because you're afraid of failure, well, what's the worst somebody's going to say? No? Or they don't like it? Well, we're not going to make everybody happy, and lots of people don't like horror, and lots of people don't like romance. And so you have to stay true to yourself. And if you're happy with whatever you're writing, that's the important thing. And as far as being published now, because we have that option to do self-publishing, we're not tied to the whims of an acquisition editor who may or may not like whatever it is you're writing. They might not like the topic.
Or may at that time be having a very bad day and just wants to take it out on somebody.
Yes, but it's true. Or they just look through, take the vampire thing when Stephanie Brown was all the rage, and suddenly everybody was writing vampires. Well, as an acquisition editor, if you've just read 5 vampire stories and you open up the next one and it's another vampire one, you're like, I don't even want to look at this. And it could be brilliant. So it's, we're not tied to that anymore. So there's really nothing to be afraid of. It's just trust yourself, trust your instincts. And if we don't try, we'll never succeed. If you want to sit and just go, no, I can't do it because I'm going to fail. Well, you've already failed.
Yep.
You've already done it. So.
And you did it to yourself. They didn't do it for you.
Exactly. So yeah, if we never learn to try, we never learn to fly. And flying's pretty cool when it happens.
Hey, you should write that down.
Yeah, I should.
I'll send you the clip.
Okay.
Nancy, this has been, again, fantastic. It was fantastic the first time we did this. It was fantastic now. And I'm sure 2-3 more books in the future from now when we do this again, it'll be fun again. So thanks for agreeing to come, and thanks for working with me through the scheduling and all that sort of stuff. It has been fun. I've learned a lot. I've laughed a lot. And thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Between the Lines, the podcast. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Your passion for literature and the written word is what makes this journey so extraordinary. But before you head back to the world beyond our literary haven, I have a quick favor. If today's episode resonated with you, help spread the word. To explore more about me, or read the blog, or hear all episodes of Between the Lines, head over to www.therandylacey.ca. If you believe in the magic of writing and want to be part of the Between the Lines community, show some love by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee button in the top right corner of the page. Your support, no matter how small, helps me bring fascinating conversations with talented authors and writers. Your support is crucial to keep this literary ship sailing. Please consider subscribing to be notified of any news about future content. If you have any questions, comments, or are interested in being a guest, email me at randy.btlpodcast@gmail.com. So, until next time, happy reading, writing, and living between the lines.